monitoring the situation in Ferguson, Missouri. But first, this breaking news story. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says the threat from ISIS is now greater than al-Qaeda. The warning comes just after the terror group released a brutal video showing the murder of American Jim Foley. CNN's Tom Foreman has been examining that video for clues about ISIS. He's joining us now. What'd you find?
There are a lot of clues in there, and we know so much more about the circumstances of James Foley's murder and that video than we did just 24 hours ago. And that is a measure of how energetically intelligence analysts worldwide are scrutinizing this group and this incident.
We now know that U.S. forces tried to rescue Foley and other hostages earlier this summer, but could not find them. We know, too, that ISIS said it wanted $133 million in ransom for Foley. And we know much more about his executioner on the video, in part because of that man's voice.
Any attempt by you, Obama, to deny the Muslims their rights of living in safety under the Islamic Caliphate will result in the bloodshed of your people.
The masked man does not speak Arabic, but English, and analysts say he sounds as if he's from the south side of London. The Guardian newspaper suggested he is part of a cell of Brits who went to fight in Syria and now handle foreign hostages for ISIS. Analysts are trying to match that voice with other known recordings of ISIS terrorists, like this one in 2013.
Where are you when they are slaughtering our children and our fathers?
But the voice may also be a warning, a call to arms for sleeper cells in Western nations.
This kind of video, that energizes these kind of people, and it may inspire some to carry out copycat type of strikes in Europe. I think there's going to be real concern about that in the days and weeks ahead.
The terrain and weather appears similar to what is found in much of the stark desert in Syria. That may not help much now, but it could prove useful if other leads point to the same area. The clothing worn by Foley mirrors the orange fabric of prisoners held at Guantanamo Bay.
That's obviously sending out a message to their support base, tit for tat. This, you treated our prisoners badly in Guantanamo, and this is now what we're doing in return.
God bless. And what about the audience? Analysts say the video was clearly aimed at the White House, suggesting if air raids against ISIS don't stop, another captured journalist, Steven Sotloff, will be killed. When Nicholas Hennon, who was also an ISIS hostage, last saw Sotloff,
he was doing as good as he could, according to the circumstances.
But his fate is now highly uncertain.
So what we have right now is a race against time to see if ISIS can be weakened further by airstrikes and to see if intelligence forces can figure out more about where Sotloff is being held, and ultimately to see if those who killed James Foley can be brought to justice. Brianna.
Tom Foreman, thank you so much. Let's turn now to the vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Republican Saxby Chambliss of Georgia. First, I know that you were listening, Senator, to our interview with Rear Admiral John Kirby, the spokesman for the Pentagon. I know you paid very close attention to what we heard today from Secretary Hagel. How are you reacting to the administration talking about what the threats are from ISIS, and do you agree with the assessment?
Well, I'm a little disappointed that Secretary Hagel would say the U.S. better get ready for ISIS. I mean, come on. We've known for weeks that ISIS wants to attack the United States. Now they're doing it by carrying out this atrocious murder yesterday. And, we've made a real effort to slow down ISIS in the last week. But frankly, that should have been done weeks ago. These are the meanest, nastiest folks in the world today, and we have an obligation to protect our people on the ground in Iraq, and we should have been taking out ISIL weeks and weeks ago with airstrikes. But more importantly, Brianna, I subscribe to the theory that my friend General Jack Keane has said, and that is the president should show leadership here. He should convene all of the leaders of the neighboring countries to Iraq, including Iraq. And let's get those folks together and say, look, we'll provide the air cover, we'll provide the weaponry. These folks are going to be a menace to your country unless we rid your country of these people. You put the troops on the ground to take them out, and we'll provide the support to you. That would be real leadership on the part of the president here.
What more needs to be done? How involved do you think the U.S. needs to become in targeting ISIS or ISIL, as you and certainly the administration refer to it, And how do you see the public responding to that?
Well, I think the public is obviously not in support of American boots on the ground, and I think this can be handled without that. But I think very clearly the airstrikes are having a very positive impact from the standpoint of taking out the leadership of ISIS, as well as taking out a lot of their equipment. We need to step up our game on taking out weaponry, equipment, as well as ISIL personnel. And we know who the leaders are. We know where they are. Abu Bakr has been on our radar screen for years now. He was too extreme for al-Qaeda. That just tells you how extremist he is. So I think it's incumbent on the leadership at the Pentagon, as well as the leadership of the administration, to really come forward and get outside of the Mosul to Crete, Baghdad corridor. Go where ISIS is in other parts where they're trying to establish this caliphate. And let's take it to them in a very strong way and make sure they understand you don't do to an American what you did to Mr. Foley. We're coming after you. You better not do it again. If you do it again, we're just going to be stronger in opposition to you.
Senator, can I ask you, if you were to get more involved in that, then you would expect that Congress would have to vote on that. I mean, do you think that Congress would even go ahead and authorize that? Is that even possible that it's a reality heading in the direction you're talking about, widening the strikes beyond just the targeted airstrikes that we're seeing?
Well, the president has the authority under the Constitution to defend Americans, and we have Americans on the ground in Iraq who are threatened by ISIL. I think he could probably take as much action as he thought necessary to protect those Americans that are on the ground. But I will tell you also, I would look forward to a debate in the United States Senate over this issue. This is not going to stop in Baghdad if we don't stop ISIL now. This is going to continue on to American soil eventually. The time to stop it is now. The place to stop it is on the ground in Iraq.
The Obama administration released information about what was really ultimately a failed operation to try to retrieve Jim Foley and other hostages. Do you think that information should have been released?
Well, I got a phone call the day the mission was going down, explaining to me what was going to happen, and got a call the next day telling me that when they got on the ground that the hostages were not there. They obviously had been there. I don't consider this an intelligence failure because gathering intelligence inside of Syria today is very, very difficult. They did a good job of figuring out that the hostages were there at some point in time. But this was a covert action. I simply don't understand why the White House is even acknowledging covert actions. We carry out covert actions from time to time in secret because they're very sensitive, they're very dangerous missions, and they're missions that these brave men and women have to undertake from time to time. And the more we put their life on the line, the more dangerous it becomes and the less likely we're going to have success.
And we've heard that tonight. Senator Chambliss, thank you so much. Let's head now to Ferguson, Missouri, where Jake Tapper is. Jake?